Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. My name is Morgue. I'm an ex-Christian revealing hidden knowledge to create a new world. And today we are talking about the 7 weirdest, darkest, strangest stories in the Bible that people don't want you to know about. Your pastor's not telling you about. You didn't learn these in Sunday school. These are the things they skip over in church. I don't even want to know them, but I know them because I read the Bible a lot. So today we're taking a look at some of these stories, some very weird, dark, strange stories. And guess what? You get to see me get triggered because we're not talking about Gnosticism. We're not talking about the occult. We're talking about the Bible. And I'm an ex-Christian. I don't like these stories. Now, to be fair, just real quick, there is an esoteric way to interpret the Bible. And when you interpret the Bible in an esoteric way, it can be a positive tool if you do it in a very careful way. However, when you take it to be literal and you realize there are some horrific things in the Bible that promote violence and slavery and sexism and a lot of words that I can't see, it's a very terrible book and it creates psychological damage. It creates what's known as RTS or religious trauma syndrome that occurs in individuals who try and leave the faith or who do leave the faith and have psychological issues because of that. RTS, which mimic the effects of PTSD and CPTSD. Dr. Marlene Winnell has done a lot of work on that. I am a recovering RTS. I have recovering from RTS. Anyway, enough of that. Let's actually take a look at some of these strange, weird, dark stories in the Bible. And we have 7 of them. And coming up at number 1 here, well, usually, right, you go from 7 to 1, I guess. All right, let's say starting at number 7 then. I guess we'll do reverse order. So starting at number 7, and by the way, I'm going to be reading some quotes because I saw this really good article on medium.com by Tanner the Humanist called 7 More Awkward Bible Stories. And so I'm going to be reading some excerpts from that. So anyway, if you like some of the excerpts that I read from Tanner, go follow him on medium.com, Tanner the Humanist. It's called 7 More Awkward Bible Stories. So that's what... Yeah, he starts by saying, think the Bible's all holy wisdom. Wait until you hear about the guy who dismembered his dead girlfriend and sent her body parts to prove a point. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff. So let's start with number 7. And this is the one that you guys have probably heard me talk about a lot because I think this is one of the darkest. There's a lot of dark stories in the Bible, but this is one of the darkest. And you've heard me talk about this one a lot. It's Jephthah's daughter. So in Judges 11, we meet Jephthah, a guy who makes a vow to God that if he wins a battle, he'll sacrifice the first thing that comes out of his house to meet him. It's a pretty dumb thing to say, but he does that. And yeah, it says here, now you'd think that Jephthah would be pretty specific about what he means by the first thing, but nope. Guess who comes out to greet him after his victory? His daughter. That's right. Jephthah's only child walks right into his life like, hey dad, good job. And he's like, well, guess I got to kill you now. I like the style of this guy. The girl doesn't even get a say in it. If this isn't messed up, I don't know what is, but she's a trooper. And before she dies, she asks for 2 months to mourn. Talk about an awkward family reunion. Yeah, so this is the story of Jephthah's daughter. And it's exactly right. Jephthah makes a vow to God, says, hey, if you let me be victorious in battle, then I will sacrifice the first thing that comes to greet me on my return. And so what he was probably expecting is like, I don't know, his dog to come bounding out or one of his animals to greet him. That's what I was taught. I was taught this as, you know, I remember learning about this. I don't know if it was just, so we read the Bible every day, not only every day, multiple times a day. So in the morning and at night, if not in the afternoon as well, there was a lot of Bible reading, a lot of Bible study. I read it on my own, part of the family, when we went to church, Bible camps, etc. Anyway, I learned about this story. And yeah, I remember being told, oh, well, Jephthah thought that an animal was going to come out. But then an animal didn't. His daughter came out. And so Jephthah essentially sacrificed his daughter to God. And try and resolve that one for me. You know, the Christians are like, you know, oh, God's good and all loving. Well, what kind of God would accept a burnt virgin sacrifice? And if you think about it, is that not the most archetypal? So like when you think of Satan, what do you normally think of? Well, you think of a guy with red skin and horns and a pitchfork. But what's typically associated with like satanic rituals? A burnt virgin sacrifice. Like you can't get more satanic than that. And yet here you have God accepting a burnt virgin sacrifice from Jephthah. And this is one of the many reasons why the Cathars thought that the god of this world was actually Satan, Rex Mundi, and tricked humanity into thinking that he was God. Makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? This is very hard to make sense of if you say that God is an all-loving, all-powerful being. But if you think that God is a demonic entity, then it makes a lot more sense. And just to, if we can, I can read to you directly what it says in the Bible. So if you get your Bibles and open up to Judges 11, it says, Jephthah, the Gileadite, was a mighty warrior. His father was Gilead. His mother was a prostitute. Gilead's wife also bore him sons. And where do we get to the part? Anyway, a lot of boring stuff. But he says, where does he end up unaliving his daughter? Yeah, here we go. So Jephthah made a vow to the Lord, if you give the Ammonites into my hands. So the Ammonites was the enemy of Jephthah. So if you allow me to conquer the Ammonites, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. Then Jephthah went over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gave them into his hands. He devastated 20 towns from Aroer to the vicinity of Minnith, as far as Abel Keramim. Thus Israel subdued Ammon. When Jephthah returned to his home in Mitzpah, who should come out to meet him but his daughter, dancing to the sound of timbrels? So she came out dancing. She was his only child. And when he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, kind of like Hulk Hogan. That's what they did back then. When they were really sad, they would tear. You find this happens a lot in the Bible. When anyone's really sad, they tear their clothes. Anyway. And he cried, "Oh no, my daughter, you have brought me down and I am devastated. I've made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break." So what did his daughter do? He said, she said, "My father, you've given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised, now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies. But grant me this one request." She said, "Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends because I will never marry." "You may go," he said, and he let her go for 2 months. She and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never marry. After the 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. From this comes the Israelite tradition that each year the young women of Israel go out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite. So that's gross. The whole story is just quite awful. And so here is something that I have seen. So what some Christians try to say, I've seen this excuse given, because this is a very hard story to make fit with your narrative that God is all loving. What I've seen some Christians try and do is say, oh, well, he didn't actually kill her. He made a vow to the Lord that essentially that she would be a virgin forever. So they try and say, oh, no, you're just not reading the story right. Jephthah didn't actually offer up as a burnt virgin sacrifice. He offered his virginity, he offered her virginity, essentially, meaning that she would always be a virgin. First of all, even if that's true, that's still gross and weird. But that doesn't make any sense, because it's very, very clear in the Bible. He says, whatever comes out of the door to my house, I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. Very clear. Jephthah's daughter says, my father, do to me just as you promised. And it says, when she returned to her father, he did to her as he had vowed. So it's pretty clear. I don't think there's very much wiggle room at all to try and like, that's what happens a lot. They'll go, oh, well, it's actually about, no, if you read it differently. No, this is very clear, very straightforward. Even if it were true that, oh, it was just the virginity, that's still really weird thing to do. But anyway, horrible story, burnt virgin sacrifice, and stuff like this happens all the time in the Bible. God is constantly unaliving children. In this story of Moses and the Pharaoh, he unalives all of the firstborn children of Egypt. Not only human children, but of the cattle as well. Just all the firstborn, wipes them out. It's really gross. Anyway, that was kind of a bonus one because that's not on the list. So let's go to the next. So that was number 7. Let's go to number 6. The Levite and his concubine. This one I completely had forgot about, but I remember it now. And it's gross. So this is also in Judges 19. And let me load that up into the search bar here so that we can actually read it. So if you think your relationship drama is bad, let me introduce you to the Levite and his concubine. This one starts like any typical horror story. Guy has a concubine. She cheats on him. And he's like, I'll take you back, but you need to pay for this. So he goes to get her back. And after a few pit stops along the way, they end up at a random guy's house for the night. Things get worse when some men from the city show up demanding to know the Levite. And that means to screw him. The host, being a stand-up guy, offers his virgin daughter instead, but it's not much better. The Levite hands his concubine over to the mob, and things go downhill really fast. By the morning, the concubine is not alive anymore. So he basically puts her outside, and they have their way with her until she's no longer alive. And to top it off, the Levite dismembers her body and sends her pieces across the nation to show the horror of the crime. Definitely not the kind of bedtime story for kids, huh? I don't want to, I could go read this directly in the Bible, but it's such a gross story that I don't even know if I want to. But it happens exactly how that's described. Maybe I'll just read a couple parts of it just so you get the idea of that. No, this is actually in here. Yeah, so this mob wants to screw the Levite, and the owner of the house says, look, here's my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you want to them. But as for this man, don't touch him. But the man would not listen. So the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them, and they forced themselves on her violently. And she went to the door, laid down until daylight, and she was no longer alive. And then he took a knife, cut her up into 12 parts, and set them into all the areas of Israel. Probably 12 for the 12 tribes, I would imagine. There's 12 tribes of Israel, so probably 12 parts, 1 part for each of the tribe. Anyway, that's a horrible story. I don't want to talk about that one anymore. It's gross. Like I said, the stuff is really sick. But on that note, like, this is not just a one time. It's not like, oh, this is just one story. There are so many stories like this. And I want you to think about this for a minute. This is the book that they want in schools. Think about all the books that they're trying to ban from schools because they're like, oh no, kids can't read this stuff. It's too sexual or something. And they're not. The books that they want to read are not. They're usually just like health books. Or about, like, I don't know, how people have what's considered, different types of relationships or something today. Anyway, they're educational books, and people are like, oh no, we can't have those books in school. We got to ban them. Meanwhile, they want the Bible in every school, and it's got junk like this in. You have SA, a person until they're no longer alive, cutting up their body into pieces, sending them. It's horrible. It's absolutely disgusting. Anyway, we should absolutely not have Bibles in school. So let's talk about another one, because that's really hate that one. That's probably why I didn't remember it very well, was because I tried to repress that shit. So this is number 5, the talking prophet. So which one is this? Let's see. Let me, I'm not sure. I'm reading some of these for the first time with you guys. I scanned these real quick. So let's see what this is. In 1 King 13, there's a prophet who just had an intense, fiery moment with a false prophet. After making a big prophecy about a king, the man of God is told by God to not eat or drink. Seems simple enough, right? But then another old prophet comes up to him and says, oh, God told me to tell you to come eat with me. Oh man. So the first prophet, thinking this guy is legit, listens to him. Big mistake. He disobeys God, and what happens? God sends a lion to eat him. No joke. The moral here, don't listen to anyone who claims to be God's messenger unless they've got better credentials than a random old dude. Awkward for everyone involved, especially for the poor lion. So there's a prophet, and God says, hey, prophet, don't eat or drink anything. And he goes, all right, fine, I won't eat or drink anything. And then some other prophet goes to him and says, hey, God told me that you can come eat with me. So the first prophet thought it was true and ate with him. And then so God was like, no, you're going to get eaten now. Such a forgiving God of love, isn't he? So it's such a wonderful, wonderful story. Let's see. Let's come in at, what is this? We had 7, 6, 5, 4. Number 4. Let's see which this one is. The curse of generations. In Exodus 25, God drops a bombshell when he says, I am the Lord your God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children. Oh, yes. Okay. So this is the one. Man. Okay. So basically what happens here is that oftentimes when someone sins, God will curse not only that person, but their children and their children's children and their children's children. This is actually pointed out in one of the Gnostic books. I believe it's called The Gospel of Truth. In the Gospel of Truth, the Gnostics go, this God is saying that he curses people who haven't even done anything wrong. This is clearly not God. Anyway, in Exodus 25, God says, I am the Lord your God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generations of those who hate me. Basically, God's saying that if your great-great-grandparents mess up, you're stuck with the consequences. Imagine that. Your great-great-grandpa made one bad decision, and now you're paying for it in 2024. Great. So, yeah, that's exactly right. And good thing that that's not true, because I'm sure probably a lot of our great-great-great-grandparents were probably not great people. I mean, I hope they were for you, but, you know, back in however long ago that was, people were doing a lot of terrible, horrible things. I mean, people do terrible, horrible things today, but even more so back then, what was considered like acceptable today is pretty horrific. So anyway, but imagine, you know, I see this would be very much like, let's say that you get arrested for, let's say someone commits a murder and you get arrested and sent to prison for that murder. It's not very fair, is it? So much for like a just and loving God that will punish those who have nothing to do with the crime committed. Absolutely disgusting. Which one is this? Okay, so this is number 3. The daughters of Zelophehad. Zelophehad. Don't know if I've. Let's see what this one is. The daughters of Zelophehad fight for land. Let's see what this one is. In Numbers 27, we meet the daughters of Zelophehad, who have a very specific request. They want to inherit their father's land. Seems fair enough, but according to the rules at this time, only sons were allowed to inherit property. So these women go to Moses and argue, why should we be left out just because we're girls? Fair. Guess what? They win. Okay, that sounds fine so far. I'm waiting for the part where it says like God chopped everyone's heads off or something. They win. Moses goes to God and he's like, you know what? They're right. Let him have the land. Let them have the land. Okay. I'm waiting for this to take a turn because I'm very skeptical that this is going to have a happy ending. Suddenly, women in the Bible are like, we're not taking no for an answer, and they get what they want. Honestly, it's one of the few moments in the Bible where women take the lead and don't get screwed over. Still, the whole legal battle is pretty awkward by ancient standards. Oh, this was actually a good one. Is that it? I don't know why this has made the list of, oh, that's a fine one. Good for that. That's rare. Well, that should be in one of the, not in the darkest stories of the Bible, but one of the better stories of the Bible. I agree with that one. Good for those girls. That's very, God must have been in a real good mood today and that day, because normally that doesn't happen. Normally, you know, it's very sexist. So let's see. This one. Samson's hilariously terrible relationship choices. All right, are you guys familiar with the story of Samson and like Samson and Delilah? This is a weird one. So Samson, a guy with superhuman strength but zero self-control. So Samson was incredibly strong, like superhuman. He's basically like Superman. Again, the Bible is crazy. Let's see if we can't just open this up. So this is Judges 16. All right, let's just read. Let's. This is kind of a long story, but I want to see if it's worth reading here because I want to. All right, so how strong was Samson? I'm trying to find a verse here. Okay. So Samson is going to fight his enemies, the Philistines, right? So how does Samson fight the Philistines? He goes out. Let's just listen to this. Oh, God. Okay, so Samson's going to go fight the Philistines. Just take a guess. How do you think he's going to do it? You think he's going to do it with a sword? With a spear? Maybe he's going to just go barehanded? Nope. So he went out and caught 300 foxes and tied them tail to tail in pairs. He then fastened a torch to every pair of tails, lit the torches, and let the foxes loose in the standing grain of the Philistines. He burned up the shocks and standing grain together with the vineyards and olive groves. When the Philistines asked who did this, they were told Samson, the Timnite's son-in-law, because his wife was given to his companion. Okay, so let's see what else. So the Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. Samson said, "Since you've acted like this, I swear that I won't stop until I get my revenge on you." He attacked them viciously and slaughtered many of them. He then went down in a cave in the rock of Etam. So he's hiding out, and they're going to take Samson for a prisoner. And 3,000 men went to the cave where Samson was and says, "Don't you realize that the Philistines are rulers over us? What have you done to us?" He answered, "I merely did to them what they did to me." They said, "We're going to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines." And he said, "Swear to me that you won't kill me yourselves." "Agreed," they answered. "We will only tie you up and hand you over to them. We won't kill you." So they bound him up with ropes and led him up to a rock. And then the Philistines came toward him shouting. So then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. The ropes on his arms became like charred flax and the bindings dropped from his hand. So he just flexed and the rope poof, popped off. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey. I don't know why he's got to do, what has he got to involve animals in all this, man? So finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey, he grabbed it and struck down 1,000 men. So he used the donkey, he killed 1,000 people with the donkey's jawbone. Samson said, "With the donkey's jawbone, I have made donkeys of them." Okay, to be fair, that's kind of funny. I mean, it's not a great story, but I guess he's got some one-liners. With the donkey's jawbone, I have killed 1,000 men. When he finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone. Because of this, he was very thirsty. Stories are so weird, man. He was real thirsty after killing 1,000 people with a donkey jaw. And so he was super thirsty, and he cried out to the Lord, "You have given your servant this great victory. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" Then God opened up the hollow place in Lehi, and water came out of it. When Samson drank, his strength returned, and he revived. So the spring was called whatever. Okay, so that's all well and good. So anyway, Samson's a real strong, kind of weird guy. And one day Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He went to spend the night with her. The people of Gaza were told Samson is here. So they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night. And they said, "Hey, at dawn, we're going to kill him." But Samson lay there only until the middle of the night. Then he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate together with the 2 posts, and tore them loose, bar and all. He lifted them to his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill. What did he do? Wait, what? He took off the doors and tore them loose? He lifted them to... What, did they lock him in or something? I don't know. For some reason, I'm perhaps missing the point here. For some reason, Samson broke the doors off and carried them around. Anyway, sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how you can overpower him, so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength, how you can be tied up and subdued." It should be a red flag, right? Like if you're sleeping with someone, if you're sleeping with someone and, you know, after you do it, they're like, you know, you're sitting in bed together and they're like, "Hey, tell me how you're so strong and how I could tie you up so that you can't move." I mean, unless you're into some kinky stuff, I mean, maybe that should be a red flag, right? I mean, I would think that maybe this person has ill intentions. Anyway, Samson said, "If anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man." So Samson is basically super powerful and he has a weakness, but he's never told anyone his weakness. And Delilah's trying to figure it out so that she can tie him up. And basically Samson is lying to her. He's not telling, he's like, "Okay, so if you tie me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, that's the secret. If you do that, I'll become weak." That's not true. He's lying to her. So what happens is then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him up. With men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the bowstrings as easily as a piece of string snaps when it comes close to a flame, so the secret of his strength was not discovered. So stupid. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You've made a fool of me. You lied to me. Come on now. Tell me how you can be tied." Can you imagine? So you tell this person that you're sleeping with, "Hey, you know," she wants to know, like, "Hey, how can I tie you up and make you weak?" And you tell her, and she does it so that people can come kill you. And she's like, and she gets mad at you. And she's like, "Hey, you know, you lied to me. You said that this would make you weak. And now I look like an idiot because I had these guys come to kill you. And they can't. Oh, I look stupid. So don't lie to me. Tell me how to do it." Samson's an idiot. Let me tell you, Samson's not the brightest bulb. So she says, "Come on, tell me how to do it." And Samson says, "Okay, if anyone ties me securely with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man." So again, he's lying to her. That's not true. That's not the secret. What? That's what he said. He tells her. And he says, "Okay, so then Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then with the men hidden in the room, she called to him, 'Samson, the Philistines are upon you.' But he snapped the ropes off his arms as if they were threads. Delilah said to Samson, 'All this time you've been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell you how you can be tied.'" Isn't this like the worst gaslighting ever, when you're like, "Oh, I'm going to tie you up so that I can have you killed. But oh, you're making a fool. You're making me look dumb. Making me look like an idiot. You know how stupid I look. I told these guys they could kill you because you told me that you wouldn't be able to move, but you can." Anyway, so Delilah's like, "Okay, you're making me look like a fool. You're lying to me. Seriously, tell me how you can be tied up." And Samson replied, "If you weave the 7 braids of my hair into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin, I'll become as weak as any other man." So look, Samson's an idiot. Like, clearly she's trying to kill him. I mean, I guess that must have been some really great sex, because he obviously doesn't give a crap that she's trying to kill him. So he says, "If you weave 7 braids of my head into fat, blah, blah, blah." So while he was sleeping, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into the fabric, and tightened it with the pin. And she said, hey, Samson, the Philistines are going to get you. He woke up from his sleep and pulled up the pin and the loom with the fabric. Then she said to him, how can you say God, how does anyone take these stories seriously? Then she said to him, how can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? This is the 3rd time you've made me a fool and haven't told me the secret of your great strength. With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So this happened again and again and again and again until he was just sick of it. So what did good old smart Samson do? He told her the truth. He told her how to do it. So he told her everything. He said, no razor has ever been used on my head. He said, because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me and I would become as weak as any other man. So that is true. He made a vow or whatever, never to cut his hair. And if he cut his hair, he would lose his strength. So he fucking tells her after she tries to kill him, says day after day after day after day. She tells him, what do you think is going to happen? You idiot. Anyway, when Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, come back once more. He told me everything. So the rulers of the Philistines returned with silver in their hands. After putting him to sleep on her lap, she called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He woke up from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free, but he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, and what did they do? They gouged out his eyes and took him down to Gaza, binding him with bronze shackles. They sent him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair, okay, so they cut out his eyes, locked him up, and sent him to grind grain in the prison. Hopefully he learned his lesson. Okay, so what happens now is the hair on his head starts to grow back. And the rulers of the Philistine assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to celebrate, saying, our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. So they're all happy about it. And they said, bring out Samson to entertain us. So they basically want Samson to come out, and Samson came out and performed for them. I guess, I don't know. He came out and did a little dance or something. And when they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple so that I may lean against them. Okay, so long story short, he prays to God, and his hair had started to grow back, and he's standing between these pillars, and Samson reaches toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them. Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, pushed over the pillars, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than when he lived. And that's the story of Samson and Delilah. That was kind of a long one, but pretty dumb. Pretty dumb story. Now, of course, if one wanted to esoterically interpret this, could you come up with some perhaps interesting lesson here? Probably. But if you take it to be literal, which is what I critique when I am critiquing mainstream Christianity, this is ridiculous. It's a horrible story. So that was number 2 on the list. Let's look at number 1. Oh, this one's not. Well, okay. So number 1, you guys have probably heard of this one. Compared to all of that, this isn't so, it's still bad, but it's not that bad. Anyway, it's the story of Cain and Abel. In Genesis 4, the story of Cain and Abel takes a pretty dark turn. So Cain gets jealous of his brother Abel and decides to take matters into his own hands. The result, he kills Abel and tries to play it off like nothing happened. And God says, what have you done? Your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. And for Cain, it gets even worse because he's cursed and becomes a wanderer, way to ruin a family dinner. So you probably have heard that story before. It's a story of Cain and Abel. God wants sacrifices because God always wants you to sacrifice things to him because he's a weirdo. And so Cain and Abel, they're brothers, and they go to offer sacrifices to the Lord. And so Abel is a farmer of the animals, like a sheep herder, whatever. He raises animals. And so since he raises animals, he takes like a lamb or something to slaughter to the Lord. And God likes it. God's like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. Thanks a lot. I love this dead lamb. Thank you for the dead lamb. Thanks for killing a dead lamb for me. And then what Cain does, however, Cain doesn't raise animals. Cain is a farmer of crops. So Cain takes what he does. He takes his crops and he presents it to the Lord for an offering. And the Lord goes, what the fuck is this? Do I look like a vegan to you? And he gets pissed off and says, you suck, Cain. Abel's way better. He gave me a dead thing. You didn't. And so Cain gets all pissy because he's like, well, God didn't like my fruit and vegetables. And so then Cain kills Abel. God gets mad at Cain, curses Cain. Cain wanders off into the land of Nod. And some people believe that, I forget why, but some people believe that Cain is like immortal because he's like this immortal wanderer. It's very interesting, actually, when you start looking into the idea of like Cain. There's some interesting stuff there. But anyway, there was actually a sect of Gnostics called the Cainites who they didn't worship Cain, but they basically like based their ideas around Cain, and they were the ones who believed that you had to engage in every experience that life had to offer in order to transcend the material domain. Anyway, that's off topic. We're not talking about Gnosticism today. But those are some of the 7, according to this particular list, some of the 7 weirdest stories in the Bible. These are some bad ones. I think that there are worse, actually. So perhaps we'll do more of these. If you guys want more of these, let me know in the comments and tell me which one did you think was the worst. I think the one that was the worst was the concubine that they left outside to get SA. Like, that's horrible. I don't even like thinking about that story. I think the most ridiculous one was Samson. I mean, that was just like funny. Not funny, but not funny. Hilariously stupid, I would say. Anyway, which one did you think was the worst or the weirdest or the most awkward? Tell me in the comments below. If you want more of these, let me know as well. And if you guys want to do drunk Bible reading again sometime, maybe we'll do that. Let me know. Tell me if you guys want that. But there's a whole playlist. Check it out on my channel. And I want to remind you that, hey, my new book is out, Psychogenesis, Self and Universal Transformation. Make sure you check it out. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, start with book 1, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. The links for my books are in the description of this video. And you can follow me on Spotify there. Consider becoming a member. Hit the join button below this video to become a member and help me reach more people with this information. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Nusalina, Dallas, Digital Tech, David, LaDonna, Grace, Kira, and everyone else. Thank you very much.